Hi students, welcome to lesson number 18, non-probability sampling. Introduction. In many research situations, the researcher may not have the list of persons with the specific characteristics required for the study. For example, number of people who smoke or consume alcohol, or number of wife battering, number of people involved in prostitution or beggary, and so on. In these cases, probability sampling is difficult and inappropriate to use. In these cases, it is appropriate to employ non-probability sampling. Objectives. After reading this lesson, you will be able to define non-probability sampling, explain different types of non-probability sampling, explain the advantages and disadvantages of non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling is based on the judgment of the researcher. Non-probability sampling procedures do not employ the rules of probability theory nor claim representativeness. As the list of population is not available, the researcher cannot select the respondents or units randomly. Therefore, we cannot know the size and effects of sampling errors. This sampling method is usually used for qualitative and explorative analysis. Non-probability sampling methods are more suitable for in-depth qualitative research in which the focus is often to understand complex social phenomena. This sampling method can be effective if the researcher intends to generate ideas or trying to collect the feedback from the people. However, the results cannot be generalized to the entire population with a high level of confidence. One of the advantages of non-probability sampling is its lower cost compared to probability sampling. Moreover, the in-depth analysis of a small purposive sample or a case study enables the discovery and identification of patterns and causal mechanisms that do not draw time and context-free assumptions. The guiding factors in this method include the availability of the units, the personal experience of the researcher, and his or her convenience in carrying out the study. There are 5 types of non-probability sampling. The first one is convenience or accidental sampling, purposive sampling, quota sampling, snowball sampling, and volunteer sampling. Now let us discuss about convenience sampling. This sampling is also known as accidental sampling. This sampling refers to a method of selecting respondents who have to meet the researcher during certain period of time of research and are willing to be interviewed. In other words, the researcher studies all those persons who are most conveniently available or who accidentally come in his contact during a certain period of time in the research. For example, the researcher wants to collect the opinion of people on the measures taken by the government to control the spread of COVID-19. The researcher may interview or collect the opinion of the people on the streets that are presumed to reflect public opinion. This sampling method is employed where representativeness is not significant. The researcher employs this method when he does not have the parameters of the population or the list of community or people is not available. This sampling method may be biased. The respondents may have vested interest and respondents may be those people who are vocal. The most obvious advantage of convenience or accidental sampling is that it is quick and economical. This method is best utilized for exploratory studies or research. A convenience sampling is used in certain situations. Now let us discuss about them. The first one is when the universe is not clearly defined. The second one is when sampling units is not clear. And the third one is when a complete source or list is not available. Now let us discuss about the advantages of convenience sampling. The first one is it is relatively easy to get a sample. The second one is it is inexpensive compared to other methods. The third one is participants are readily available. But this method also has its own disadvantages. Now let us discuss the disadvantages of convenience sampling. The method cuts out a large part of the population. As a result, this leads to several issues like an inability to generalize the results of the survey to the population as a whole. The second one is the possibility of under or over representation of the population, and the results may be biased due to the reason why some people choose to take part and some do not. Now let us discuss about purposive sampling. Purposive sampling is also known as judgmental sampling. This sampling method is based on the pre-assumption that with good judgment, one can select the sample units that are satisfactory in relation to one's requirement. The researcher purposively chooses persons who, in his judgment about some appropriate characteristics required of the sample members or thought to be relevant to the research topic and are easily available to him. For example, the researcher would like to study the reasons for not attending the classes or college regularly. The researcher might be desirable to choose the students for the sample who are frequently irregular to the college. The irregular students can better describe the causes for irregularity in attending the classes. If the researcher selects a random sample, he would also have the students who are attending the classes regularly and might influence the findings of the study. In this method, some variables are given importance and it represents the universe, but the selection of units is deliberately and is based on prior judgment. Advantages of purposive sampling. The first advantage is that it eliminates cost and time in preparing the sample. It also enables the researcher to include the positive aspects of stratification in the sample. But this sampling method also has its own disadvantages. The first one is, in this method, there is uncontrolled variability and bias. The success of purposive sampling method is solely depend on a thorough knowledge of the population and elimination of the use of inferential parametric statistical tools for the purpose of generalization. And the third one is complete reliance on perception and guess is risky in purposive sampling. Now let us discuss about quota sampling. In the quota sampling method, the researcher is instructed to collect information from an assigned quota, that is nothing but number of individuals in each of the several groups. The group may be specified on the basis of some characteristics such as age, income, gender and so on. This technique is generally used in market surveys and public opinion polls. In your quota sampling method, researcher first decides which strata may be relevant for the study to be conducted. Then the investigator sets a quota for each stratum. This is proportionate to its representation in the entire population. After the quota is set, quota sampling consists merely of finding persons with requisite characteristics. Even though quota sampling is not probabilistic, the investigator obviously must take every precaution to keep from bias in selection and thus make sure that the sample is as representative and generalized as possible. For example, the researcher would like to study the ambitions and aspirations of students pursuing sociology at UG level at 5 different colleges in Hyderabad city. The population consists of both boys and girls pursuing sociology at UG level, and there is a difference between their two groups. The researcher would like to gather the information from 50 students, hence 10 students from each college will be selected, of which 5 girls and 5 boys from each college will be selected for the study. The researcher has the ultimate freedom to select any 5 girls and any 5 boys from each college. The researcher wishes to study both the groups, but if he fails to gather the information from all the groups, the results of the study would certainly provide us with misleading generalizations about the population. The small groups may be excluded in practice. Keeping this in view, the researcher uses quota sampling method, which ensures inclusion of enough cases from each group in the sample. Quota can also be fixed according to their proportion in the entire population. For instance, the researcher would like to study the attitude of students on student elections in the college. The college has a total strength of 1500 students, of which 1000 are boys and 500 are girls. The quota can be fixed in the ratio of 1 girl for every 2 boys. Let us discuss the advantages of quota sampling. The first advantage is this sampling method enjoys the benefits of both stratified and purposive sampling. It makes use of stratification economically. Second one is it is also less expensive and speedy than other techniques. It does not require sampling frames. If the respondent refuses to respond, he or she can be replaced with another person who is ready to furnish the information. It is relatively effective. Primary data or information can be gathered in less time. The next one is the quota sampling is likely to give accurate results if proper control is imposed on the investigator. It also has its own disadvantages. The first disadvantage is the researcher interviews the people who are easily available and accessible. Hence, the data may not be representative in nature. There can be researchers' bias in selecting the research units. The third one is the bias may also occur due to substitution of unlike sample units. The research cannot be supervised, so there is no certainty of correctness of data. Strict control of fieldwork is difficult as several investigators are employed for gathering the information. And the next one is, as the sampling is not based on random sampling, the chances of sampling errors may be estimated. Now let us discuss snowball sampling. Snowball sampling technique is used to study some special sampling situations like getting a sample of alcoholics, wife battering, male prostitution, drug addicts, and so on. In this sampling, we start with a few respondents who are known and are available to the researcher in the study. These respondents in turn are expected to guide us to get more respondents and so on till the adequate number of persons are interviewed or no more respondents are discovered. This technique is used for doing the study on the sensitive topics. Reduced sample size and cost are clear advantages of snowball sampling. Now let us discuss the advantages of snowball sampling. It allows for students to take place where otherwise it might be impossible to conduct because of lack of participants. Snowball sampling may help the researcher to discover characteristics about a population that we were not aware of existence. It is quicker to find the samples. It is cost effective. Disadvantages of snowball sampling. It is usually impossible to determine the sampling error or make inferences about populations based on the obtained sample. The second one is there is a fair chance that the people may not cooperate in spite of referrals. Snowball sampling can be used in certain situations. Let us discuss them. The first one, when the official list of the respondents or people is not available. Difficulty in locating the people. Third one is people who are not willing to be identified. Secretiveness about the identity of the people. For example, religious extremists, hackers and so on, they don't want to reveal themselves or they don't want themselves to be identified. In those conditions, we are going to use this sampling method. Next one is volunteer sampling. In this sampling method, the respondent himself volunteers to provide the information which he or she holds. This type of samples are always biased, which can be rarely trusted. For example, think a person has been murdered on the street. The police personnels are engaged in gathering the evidences to solve the case. The police may approach the people who are present at the scenario at the time of incidents and ask them to lodge a complaint or help them in identifying the persons who committed the crime. At that time, some people, even though they were present in the crime scenario, may not respond due to the fear of identity. Some people may come forward voluntarily and provide the information. Let us discuss the advantages of volunteer sampling. The first one is it is inexpensive. Data or information can be easily gathered. It is ethical as the respondent have approached the researcher voluntarily. It is less biased as the respondent may approach the researcher out of interest in the research topic. Now let us discuss about the disadvantages of volunteer sampling. The first one is the researcher has no control over the sample units. The sample is like to be completed of strongly opinionated people. Third, it takes a lot of time to get enough people to do experiments. Fourth, it can be unrepresentative. Now let us discuss about the advantages of non-probability sampling in general. The first advantage is it is less expensive and it also consumes less time. Third, it can be used when the size of population with specific characteristics is not available. It is used with small sample size. Now let us discuss about the disadvantages of non-probability sampling. The first one is it is unrepresentative of the population. Second, the researcher bias in selecting the sample units also can be found. The third one is there is a chance of sampling errors. The fourth one is difficulty in controlling the sampling units and interviewers. Let us now discuss about applications of non-probability sampling. The major advantages of non-probability sampling are convenience and require less amount of money in doing research. Social science research most often employs non-probability sampling for special studies like problems of mentally challenged children, parents who are abandoned by children, and so on. Social science researchers will use non-probability methods and to justify their use on the grounds of practical experience even while conceding the representativeness in principle of probability sampling. Social science researchers do not carry out studies of samples for the purpose of generalization to the population from which samples have been drawn. For example, a social worker who wants to study the problems of abandoned parents by the children would be interested in obtaining reasons for abandoning new insights into the problems rather than assessing the status of opinion among the children. Now let us conclude. In this lesson, we have learned that whenever the researcher do not have the complete list of people with the specific features or characteristics to be studied, or the researcher takes up qualitative research or explorative research, non-probability sampling will be employed. Non-probability sampling is purely based on the researcher's judgment. Non-probability sampling procedures do not employ the rules of probability theory nor claim representativeness. As the list of the population is not available, the researcher cannot select the respondents or units randomly. Therefore, we cannot know the signs and effects of sampling errors. These non-probability sampling methods are more suitable for in-depth qualitative research in which the focus is often to understand the complex social phenomena. This sampling method can be effective if the researcher intends to generate ideas or trying to collect the feedback from the people. That is nothing but doing evaluative studies. However, the results cannot be generalized to the entire population with a high level of confidence.